As humans, our lives are filled with stories. We're drawn to storytelling, whether it be in ancient times, when we all sat around a fire and exchanged stories and tales, to reading books, watching movies, and now even playing games. I thought I'd talk about this because it is the holiday season, and sometimes we get distracted maybe with the idealized concepts of what the holiday season should be, or what even idealized life should be, especially now that we're living in the social media world. I actually have 5 recommendations that I am going to share at the very end of my little rant here and just give you some ideas and thoughts on actually how to find joy. But before I continue, I just wanted to mention quickly that I'm working in my Moleskine sketchbook today. It is a landscape sketchbook, and it's got hot pressed watercolor paper in it. It's kind of a new sketchbook for me, and I'm still trying to get used to it. I am trying to work out whether I am a fan or not. And because it is the holidays, I did do a little cute snowman as just a little craft project that I thought I would share. And I thought he turned out pretty cute. It's just a little cutout. I drew this from my imagination. And actually, if you like these sorts of things, I've actually got some classes, other videos that I published a couple years ago doing some of these projects. Now, the only thing I will say is that these projects initially had templates that you could download off of my Patreon site and utilize and see if you could make your own version of the little projects that I made for the holidays. But irregardless, I feel like they're still a lot of fun to watch, and I think they're cute. You'll have to tell me what you think about this guy. Anyways, back to the topic at hand. I just wanted to talk about how easy it is to buy into the narrative of how our lives or our situations are unfolding. And this is especially true, as I said, during the holiday time. It seems to be more amplified during this season because there are so many expectations and there's so much hype. And then there's, even for the best of us, I feel a little bit of a letdown. And I think especially if you've had any kind of a difficulty or an illness, or maybe your life has changed, especially drastically. Maybe you're alone, or maybe your family's fighting, or you're having to be just around taxing, difficult people that you have more complicated relationships with. Or you could even be a soldier or abroad that's alone, not getting to experience holidays with their families. We all have so many variations of potential circumstances as our life has unfolded. And life is seldom like a Norman Rockwell painting, for sure. My mom suffered from rheumatoid arthritis since the age of 18. She dealt with a lot of pain over the years, and she suffered her whole life until she passed away a few years ago. She would also allow herself to think very negative stories. She believed that other people were having a beautiful life, a beautiful Hallmark movie holiday and lifestyle with beautiful, wonderful, perfect family members. She believed that other people were having this beautiful life, a Hallmark movie kind of a life with lovely family members gathered around. And sometimes I think that's caused a great deal of depression. Of course, it was amplified by the illness, and that made it worse for sure. And not necessarily always to her fault, because it's hard to be positive when you're not well, for sure. Even I myself have had a few difficult holidays, so we probably all have. Probably every one of you out there has had some holiday that you really would like to forget, or it's just not your best memory. Certainly, we've all had difficult moments, especially in the span of our lives. This concept of a beautiful story, beautiful lives, perfect holidays, they're all just made up stories that are really far from reality, and they're just really more of a place of comfort. And I think most of us enjoy watching a positive Hallmark holiday movie. I certainly do. I think it's fine to watch. I think it's very fun and hearth and home, and I think it's nice to watch. It's very cozy as long as we keep our lives in perspective with reality, because even the actors don't have these lives. Social media is filled with the content that contains this narrative, as you probably more than well know. The perfect home, perfect spouse, perfect car, dog, the perfect children, the whole kit and caboodle. I think we all love beautiful things. I certainly spent my time on Pinterest just looking at beautiful things for sure. However, I think no matter how beautiful someone's life looks like, especially on their Instagram profile, everybody's posting the very positive, or sometimes things are very designed for beauty and designed for you to covet what they're representing to you. They're not representing the truth. They're representing a fairy tale story. But let's just face it, no one has a perfect life. Our lives are different. All our lives are complicated in some way. We have our blessings, and we certainly have our problems, our skeletons maybe in the closet, would you say? But when I get into one of these mental funks, I honestly believe in questioning my inner dialogue can really help. It helps me redirect my thoughts, and things that calm my mind or help me to reduce anxiety is the best way to go. And as you might guess, for me, obviously I draw and I paint, and I have my whole life. It is the way that I've dealt with social anxiety. Ultimately, as an introvert, I am especially shy upon first meeting people, and it's just a way for me to cope and to escape. It also helps me to just redirect my mind from any thoughts that might not be positive, some of those negative stories that we can sometimes tell ourselves. Another thing I do, if you've been here for any amount of time, you might guess, I get out in nature, especially if I start getting a case of the blues or any tightness, anxiety. I can kind of feel it coming on. It's just like an overall body ache, discomfort, and I just get my stuff together, and I usually have a backpack that's ready to go, packed up with my outdoor sketchbook, and I take that backpack and I throw it in the car, and I just go. I go to one of my favorite places that I go just to get out in nature. It's not a park. It's the places I like to go. There's a few that I have, and they're just places where you can do like day hiking. And I just go out there and I take a little stool where I could sit and open up my sketchbook when I'm so inspired. And I just detach, and I listen to the sound of the birds, and I listen to the sounds of nature, like the sounds of the wind blowing through the trees or the grass moving. Maybe I observe the wind blowing across my cheek. Those sorts of things. All small little microscopic things that maybe normally we would just not even pay attention to, but they become amplified when I really, really take the time to slow down and observe. And there's something about the act of actually doing something in my sketchbook that makes that moment even more memorable. And when I go back to my sketchbook, I often can even just like go right back there. I know that time. When I look in the sketchbook, I remember that moment and how it felt. And I like to take a little few extra notes too, like what's the day, what's the temperature, what's the time, maybe what's the clarity. But for me, being out in nature is probably the ultimate recharge. Doing both art and being out in nature, I don't think I've ever felt anything for me personally. We each have our own thing, what really, really gets us. But for me, those moments, that's where I can really reconnect for what, the divine for me, what that means, God. And I can kind of come back to who I really am. You have to realize, we as human beings have actually only been living this quote unquote indoor life for a very short period of time. We have not, in all our story, in all the history of human beings, have not lived so disconnected from nature and the rhythm of the seasons and the rhythm of the sun as we have in this time. And since around the time maybe of the Industrial Revolution, things changed greatly. And now we lead these indoor lives in offices, in boxes, all day, sitting down. It's not good for our bodies. Most of us, as you get older now, all our knees are shot. Now tell me why. Why is that? There's got to be something going on, and we're more toxic, but we're also living the longest we've ever lived. Although I think that's starting to change. There's a saying that says that as the mind goes, the body follows. And as a result, the stories that we tell ourselves can cause us to be happy or just content, sad, depressed, or actually angry. It can alter our relationships with ourselves and with those that we share our lives with, or people that we meet even on the streets, right? I mean, how many of us are really prone to a bit of road rage now and then? Yeah. I'm sadly slightly guilty because I live in the state of Florida and it is becoming more and more crazy, and I get a little upset sometimes, and it's not really good. And I think that's maybe where some mindfulness, some breathing exercises would probably be a good dose for me. But if you are a little skeptical about everything I'm telling you, there's one way that you can easily test yourself on this, and you may have heard of this already. So what I want to ask you to do, even though you're watching this demonstration, this watercolor demonstration, is to take a moment and close your eyes and just imagine that you have a tangerine or an orange in your hand. Now, just imagine yourself placing that tangerine a little closer to your face where you can smell it. Maybe you scratch the surface of it a little bit. You know what that tangerine feels like or what that orange feels like. You know the texture. And you know that when you puncture it, that citrus smell that kind of comes out, you know that so well. You can smell it. And if you imagine yourself actually puncturing it and peeling back the peel, and if you actually imagine yourself puncturing it and peeling back that peel, you know the thickness of it, you know that white interior with all that white material that surrounds all the flesh of the slices. And as you open it up, you know how all of that feels. And as you open up the tangerine to where you actually can pull out a slice, and then imagining taking out one of the slices and putting it in your mouth, and there's just an explosion of juice all around your mouth. It tastes like oranges. You know this taste. You know it so well. And now just chew it. Just imagine what it tastes like, what it feels like, that whole sensory experience. Now if you just open your eyes, now just observe your body. Just take an observance of how you're feeling. Maybe you're salivating a little bit. And the reason why you're salivating is because your mind does not know the difference between reality and a story. And that's why that when you tell yourself a story or if you relive an event every time, it actually hurts the body. It hurts you. It hurts your mind. And this is why it's so important to try to work through things, and as difficult as it is. And I know it's not easy, the concept of forgiveness. Forgiveness, I think, to us, maybe in the English language, has often meant just forgetting someone else's errors or things that they've done to us. But in fact, it's not really that. It's not that you don't learn or that you ever let them come back to you the way that they maybe were before, or that you trust them again, but it's merely the fact of letting go so that you're no longer reliving it. Now, it takes some time, obviously. It takes time, practice, effort, but that's why they tell you, I think. I'm no expert. No, don't get me wrong. I am not an expert in the psychology field. This is just some of my own experiences and how I've learned to live with difficult moments or difficult people, difficult situations, or situations where maybe I haven't been feeling good. I've gotten in just a funk, a mental funk. All those things really help me just move past and do a check. Just do a check and see where I am and what I'm thinking, and just reassess my negative narrative and see if it needs to be edited or fact-checked. So this is kind of my final 5 thoughts on finding joy and where to start. First of all, as I just said, question the truth of your stories. Question the narrative that you're telling yourself. Is this some trumped up tale, or is this for real? Is there really a problem, or is it just what you're telling yourself? Or maybe you're over exaggerating. Are there any gray sides to the story that you're telling yourself? And second of all, mindful tasks. Find something mindful to do to help you reduce anxiety and stress, like art, like watercolors and painting, whether it be something more detailed or something just fun and illustrative or abstract. Maybe you might want to try knitting, yoga. When it comes to truly discussing mindfulness, and if you look on the web, you'll find all sorts of mindfulness exercises you can do. And actually, it even comes down to you just do things very slowly and very thoughtful, and you try to focus on what you're doing. And that's why art is so perfect, is because especially when I'm working on something really detailed and I need to really pay attention, I have a really difficult time trying to actually talk, especially for YouTube, and draw or paint. And I tried to do that with today's demonstration, and I just kept failing. So that's why I decided to do this, where I'm actually just talking about this conversation, this thought that I had, and just doing almost like a voiceover, I guess. The third tip that I want to give you, or the third recommendation I want to give you, is to be kind to yourself. You are your own caretaker. You have to think about yourself, not just as just you, because we're often very negative to ourselves, very condemning or judgmental to ourselves. But in fact, there's almost segments of us, and this is the way I like to think about it. I think of myself that there's a part of me that at the core of my soul, I'm still that little child. I'm still very shy and very insecure in some ways, and afraid of things. And when I need to take care of myself like I'm taking care of that child. I don't judge that child. If things aren't going right, maybe we could just find a way to readdress how we approach that inner child. And I know that sounds very woohoo, but I think it's true. I think we need to be our best caretaker, because we are the person that we spend all our lives with. Our families come and go, loved ones come and go. If you're lucky, you might maybe be married to someone for your whole life, your whole adult life, but very few of us are. Even if you have a wonderful relationship, sometimes people die very early. There's so many things. So you have to rely on yourself as being your very own personal best friend and best caretaker. So I honestly believe in that. And fourth, redirect your thoughts with other tasks. Maybe serve others, volunteer, go get yourself a book that you can completely immerse yourself into, or maybe a task that you can really immerse yourself into, a project. Another thing you can do is if there's a place that you've thought about going, whether you have the finances to go or not, let's come up with a place that maybe is your fantasy place to escape to, and start planning it, thinking about all the places you'd like to go. You can actually start researching it and finding all the places that you might like to go, places you might like to stay. Now with Google Maps, you can see so much of places, destinations that you'd love to see. And actually planning a trip can be quite complicated and quite involving. So that's another fun project. I think it's fun. I think it can be fun. And then maybe one day, who knows? Maybe your dreams will come true and you'll get to go. And finally, number 5, and you probably won't be surprised, it's going out into nature. Go out into nature and see if you can find yourself a bit of peace, a bit of joy. And when I say joy, I do more or less mean peace. I don't mean over the top, crazy, blissful kind of a joy, but a joy that gives you just an inner peace, connection with who you really are, and irregardless of the situation, that it hopefully can get you through. And just focus on your blessings. It's kind of been kitschy now, where you're talking about, gratitude journals and that sort of thing. But I think they really do help, even if you just recognize them. And even if you really need to, I've actually put together thankfulness little journals before, where if I was feeling off or something, or I'm feeling like, oh my gosh, this is horrible, that's horrible, and I will just sit down and I'll start writing, and I will notice things like a bird outside my window, rain, the wind, changing seasons, kindness, someone's kind words, and just noticing them and writing them down. And then when you visit those pages moving forward, it'll make you think, oh yeah, wow. And some of these things that I've written down, I'm like, I would never remember those moving forward. Never. But it's all these little things that make life beautiful and make life worth living. If we just stop and, again, kind of kitschy, but smell the roses. And all those things help slow down. And all those things help you slow down. They certainly help me slow down and be thankful for where I am in this given moment, where God has put me. And so there's lots of ways that you can personally find to volunteer or give back or reconnect. And even if you don't feel like, you want to do those things, and I get that, not everybody does. Not everybody wants to go to a local nursing home or whatever. But even if you feel that way, and I'll tell you this, so as far as it comes to the holidays, one thing I like to do, because holidays do change. They change with whom you spend the holidays with, whether it be your parents or special family members or loved ones, boyfriends, husbands, wives, whatever, children. Those things change throughout a life. And when things change and traditions change, you can become depressed when things aren't stable and the same. So here's a thought that I have. This is my final thought. Actually, it's kind of like number 6 thought, is I believe in having a tradition that involves just me. I do something for just me, or a way that I like to give back to nature is I love feeding the birds. Although I'm very cautious and careful, and I'm thoughtful about when I do it, where I do it, making sure everything's healthy. But I'm actually going to be on Christmas Day making a little pine cone and putting peanut butter all over it and seeds all over it and a little string, and I'm taking it out into the woods. Actually, probably a couple of them. And I'm going to put them up in the woods. And that will be my volunteer effort for nature, to give back to nature and all these little birds that are, luckily nobody's struggling too much here in Florida because it's fairly warm, but it gets chilly from time to time. But I thought that'd be a nice, lovely way, a new tradition actually for me to start giving myself a holiday tradition that is just between me and, God and nature. And, you can do other things too. You can light a candle, you can pray, but establishing a holiday tradition. But I thought that way I would be doing something where I'm giving back, and I'm doing something that involves just maybe me and my connection with nature and God, and establishing just a tradition just for me, as long as, God willing, the creek doesn't rise and I'm healthy. I can do these things, and I continue to do them no matter where I am in the state of my life, no matter where I am in my age, or what I'm doing. And I thought that would be a fun tradition to start just for me. It's a new tradition that I've been thinking about doing. I've done this before, but not actually for the holiday time. And it doesn't have to be on Christmas Day or Christmas Eve, but it could be within the week or something. It's just a way to just give back. And you could light a candle, you could say a prayer, depending on your holiday traditions, whether, you light a menorah. Granted, that's more family oriented, but if you're alone, you could do that even as well, or just light a candle. You could do the advent calendar or advent candles. Melanie Chadwick just did a lovely advent calendar. It was all nature based, that I thought was really a beautiful thing to do. And if you like artistic traditions, I'd highly recommend that. So with that, I think I will wrap up this week's video. And I just want to let you know, again, if you want to see anything that's similar to this, you can go back and look at those videos. I'll try to remember to link a couple in the description down below. And then I'm over on Patreon too, if you're looking for extra resources. At the beginning of the year, I'm going to be doing a little bit of teaching efforts. I have 2 tiers. One, I actually have 2 tiers. One, I'll be providing basically the written sheet. And just so you know, over on Patreon, I have 2 tiers where I'm going to be doing, starting in the new year, some basic instructions on drawing and painting. And I have 2 tiers. The first tier is a $3 tier, and it's more like just for your support, appreciating this channel and helping, buy me a cup of coffee sort of situation. And then I have a $6 tier, and that's the more advanced tier, where I'll be doing maybe a video once a month that accompanies the spreadsheet that I'll be providing. So that's something I'll have going on. And then there's lots of other content that's already over there. You just have to go pop over to Patreon at Reese Osborne Studios and sign up there. And of course, I'm here on YouTube, continuing to go as long as I can. And I think that's pretty much it. I will say, however, I want to thank each and every one of you from the bottom of my heart. Really, those of you that support me, and especially people over on Patreon that support me, and people that encourage me and send me kind comments and keep up with me, and everybody that watches and comments and hangs out with me here on YouTube. I appreciate each and every one of you. I appreciate all your support, because without it, I don't know if I would feel motivated to be here. I really, really, really appreciate your support so much. And don't forget, the liking, the subscribing, and the comments help this channel as well. Helps me to continue to be here, to provide content. And I also want to, if you are celebrating, wish you a Merry Christmas. If you are celebrating Christmas, or if you are celebrating any other holiday, happy holidays. And definitely to everyone, each and every one of you, from the bottom of my heart, I wish you all a very happy new year. I wish you all the joy and all the blessing that your hearts can possibly hold. And with that, I guess I'll end the video here. I hope you enjoyed today's video, and I hope something gave you thought and something gave you comfort. And if nothing, I hope that, as always, you were inspired. All right, guys, I will see you next time. I'll talk to you very soon. Bye.
Oh, holy night, the stars are brightly shining. It's the night of the dear Savior's birth. Long lay the world in sin and error pining, till he appeared and the soul felt its worth. A thrill of hope, the weary world rejoicing.